All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today we're mapping out the complete chronological narrative of arguably the most famous character arc in all of literature and theology, the story of Lucifer. We're going to trace this entire epic journey from his origin as a flawless divine masterpiece all the way to his ultimate defeat. We'll be using biblical accounts, ancient texts, and theological writings as our guide to understand exactly what the source material says actually happened.
Look at this chilling quote from Jesus Christ found in our source material. "I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven." It's such a striking, violent image, isn't it? But to really grasp how the universe's absolute most perfect being morphed into the ultimate symbol of evil, we've got to rewind. We have to start at the absolute peak of divine perfection, long before that lightning strike.
Part 1. Heaven's most perfect creation, the masterpiece of God.
So, long before humans were even a thought, the texts describe a realm where infinite goodness reigned. Heaven was this place of perfect order, filled with choirs of seraphim and cherubim, the whole shebang. And right at the top of that hierarchy, one angel who literally outshone them all in beauty and intellect. His name, Lucifer, actually translates to Lightbringer. Fun fact here, in ancient times, people originally used that exact word to describe the planet Venus. You know, the brightest thing in the morning sky? Which is why he's also known as the morning star. But the crucial takeaway is that Lucifer wasn't just pretty to look at. He was the seal of perfection, a magnetic, brilliant leader who directed the heavenly choirs and had the profound admiration of absolutely everyone in this celestial structure, including the great warrior himself, Archangel Michael.
Moving into Part 2, the spark of rebellion, the seed of pride. Now, as scholars like St. Augustine and Father Fortia point out, perfection actually has its own unique vulnerabilities. Crazy, right? The very gifts that made Lucifer so incredible, his immense wisdom, his unmatched splendor, literally became the weapons of his own self-destruction. He makes this massive declaration, "I will ascend to the heavens, I will raise my throne above the stars of God." This perfectly captures his psychological downward spiral, because it wasn't just an overnight snap. It started as this tiny little spark, a whisper of a thought. Hey, what if my light could shine even brighter? An invisible distance started to grow. The text mentioned that other angels, like Gabriel, started noticing this subtle shift, but Lucifer just began neglecting his duties. He started craving his own glory, completely brushing off what the texts describe as God's gentle, patient warnings to just turn back to humility.
Which brings us to Part 3, the ultimate divine test, the revelation of the incarnation.
So, the narrative tells us that God eventually gathers all the heavenly hosts to unveil this massive, groundbreaking new plan, the creation of a material universe, the earth and humanity. But that really begs the question, why did the brightest star actually fall? Well, the theological catalyst was a profound test. It wasn't just that physical humans were being made. God revealed that He Himself was going to take on human form as Jesus Christ. And then He asked the angels, these majestic beings of pure, glorious light, to worship Him in that humble, mortal, fragile human flesh. On top of that, the Creator revealed that these humans would eventually corrupt themselves, and God would willingly sacrifice Himself for them on a cross.
Lucifer's response? A single, absolutely chilling word: no. Filled with this silent, brewing hatred, Lucifer viewed this divine plan as an utter, unacceptable humiliation. In his mind, why on earth should the greatest being of pure light ever bow down to something made of mud and clay? So in a moment that literally shook the heavens, he completely defied the Creator.
Next up, Part 4, the war in heaven, light versus shadow. Now, to build his rebel army, Lucifer didn't use brute force. And surprisingly enough, he didn't even use lies. Instead, he used his immense charisma and this highly seductive logic. He goes to the other angels and asks, "Is it really fair that we have to bow before a human form?" He started talking about dignity and freedom and managed to convince a full third of the heavenly host that they were being humiliated and deserved so much more. But right in the middle of this incredibly persuasive rebellion, a smaller, lower-ranking angel steps up, Archangel Michael. And Michael completely shatters Lucifer's arrogant arguments with one simple thunderous cry of humility: who is like God? That single question exposed the fatal flaw in Lucifer's logic. It reminded him that all of his brilliant light, it was just a reflection of the Creator's light. And with that one moment, an epic cosmic war erupted.
The outcome of that epic clash fundamentally changed the universe forever. Michael and the faithful angels prevailed, not through sheer brute force, but through unwavering faith and loyalty. Lucifer was cast out, thrown into the abyss, which permanently transformed his identity. The Lightbringer, the gorgeous morning star, became Satan, the corrupter, the accuser. All of his radiant light was twisted entirely into shadow.
Moving to Part 5, the corruption of humanity, the earthly campaign.
Banished from the divine presence, Satan pivoted to a brand new mission. In his twisted mind, he basically decided, well, if I can't have God's glory, I'm going to completely sabotage God's most precious new creation. So he sets his sights squarely on humanity. Look at his very first earthly strike in the Garden of Eden. Notice his exact method here. He still doesn't use force. Taking the form of a serpent, he starts by just planting a tiny seed of suspicion. Did God really say that? Then he whispers a little doubt. And finally, he promises this false divinity, "You will be like God." It is the exact same trap of pride that he fell into himself, weaponized as a whisper to transform a simple human desire into an absolute irresistible need.
From that point forward, evil wasn't just an abstract concept. It became an active, highly organized force. Satan continually tried to corrupt creation by going after the most steadfast figures in biblical history. We see it right off the bat with Adam and Eve. We see it in the immense, heartbreaking suffering of Job, where Satan essentially tried to prove that human faith is purely transactional. And we definitely see it out in the desert, where he offered Jesus Christ the exact same things that caused his own downfall, unchecked power and glory, offers which, of course, Jesus firmly rejected.
Which brings us to our final act, Part 6, the final defeat, the great dragon of Revelation. The biblical texts don't just leave Satan endlessly wandering the earth. They actually provide a definitive, prophetic conclusion to his entire story during the end times. If we take a macro view of this whole cosmic conflict, it's wild. We start pre-earth with the rebellion in heaven, move through that first sin in Eden, and eventually arrive at the end times, specifically the Great Tribulation. During this intense period, the text describes Satan significantly ramping up his deception, now appearing as the terrifying great dragon. He sets up a counterfeit kingdom to spread global chaos, and it all builds up to one final epic clash, once again against Archangel Michael and the heavenly armies.
Ultimately, Satan is permanently captured and cast into the lake of burning sulfur. Now, this isn't just some Hollywood action sequence ending. It's a profound theological statement. It signifies that his influence over creation is ended forever in a final act of ultimate divine justice. The overarching, massive message of these texts is that good always, always gets the final say. Satan's complete and utter defeat symbolizes the eternal victory of truth, justice, and love over pride and deep-seated hatred.
As we wrap up this explainer, this whole chronological journey leaves us with a really profound question to chew on. Will humanity ever truly escape the echo of the Morning Star's rebellion? The texts strongly suggest that this ancient cosmic battle of light and shadow is still happening, constantly influencing the choices you and I make every single day. Ultimately, the story of Lucifer is a timeless warning. It's a reminder about the absolute fragility of free will and the very real dangers of unchecked pride. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning.